Hi, everybody. I'm Roy Firestone. He celebrates his 26th birthday this week. Actually, today, if you want to be technical about it. It's an age when most professional boxers' careers are firmly established, but Terry Norris, who might be the most talented fighter in the world right now, has yet to truly cash in on his credentials. This is the man, some might remember, who ended Sugar Ray Leonard's career, who knocked out Olympic gold medalist Meldrick Taylor, and who longs for a bout against either Julio Cesar Chavez or James Toney. He's got a lot of bang, but perhaps not as much buck as he'd like for all of that, at least for others in his craft anyway. Today, we welcome the WBC Super Welterweight Champion of the world. Here is terrible Terry Norris, who fights Troy Waters at the Sports Arena on Saturday night. The hometown fans get to see you fight, huh?
Yeah, I'm excited about fighting in my hometown, fighting and giving the crowd a good fight.
He's a number 4 contender, for those who don't know. A lot of people don't know the name Troy Waters. They'd rather talk about others. But let's talk about you and what you've done since the last time we saw you. You've beaten Maurice Blocker, and you knocked the block off of him, and that was in Mexico City. And before that, Pat Lawler. Let's talk about the Lawler fight specifically. You've been showing a lot of people some devastating punching power, but still the average fan, not the boxing fan, the average fan doesn't know who Terry Norris is. Does that bother you?
No, not really. I just have to keep winning, and eventually everybody will find out who's the best pound-for-pound fighter in the world, and that's me, Terry Norris.
You fought a number of, everyone that they've thrown your way, actually, you've fought and you've beaten badly as you beat Lawler here. You signed a big deal with Don King, 4-fight deal, something like $5 million. So you're not exactly hurting financially, but the big money is going to be against a Chavez, a Toney, maybe a Roy Jones, maybe even down the road, Oscar De La Hoya. How patient are you before you get to that big, big payday?
I can wait a while. I'm still young. I'm still winning, and I'm not getting hurt. So after 5 years, I want to be at that point where I'm making that big, the big bucks, the money that really just I can retire on.
Have you had the fight yet, though, that has convinced everybody how good you are? I mean, boxing people know it. They know how good you are, but have you had the fight that's captured the public's imagination about you yet?
I thought the Ray Leonard fight would catch, the public.
But you know what they said about that in '91, yeah. February of '91? Sure, he beat a washed-up old guy. Right. It wasn't even Norris's victory. It was Leonard's defeat.
Yeah, there's a lot of bad things, negative things said about that fight. But I don't think I have had that signature fight yet. Chavez could be that fight, and moving the middleweight, there could be somebody there. But I'm looking forward to fighting whoever just steps in my way, and I'm just gonna walk through them.
Chavez is probably watching the monitors in Mexico City the night, because he was on the same card, the night you knocked out Blocker, and you really did a number on Blocker. I want you to listen to Phil Berger talking about the showdown, the ultimate showdown between you and Julio Cesar Chavez. Phil Berger, of course, formerly of the New York Times, talking about who he thinks would win that fight.
Julio, I believe, would want the fight because he's a brave, tough fighter, but I think it would be a mistake. I think Terry Norris has heavy hands, and they're too heavy for Chavez, and his bravery would carry him and probably to a lot of punishment.
You agree with that? Do you think that, I mean, obviously you think you'd win the fight, but do you think it would be a foolish mistake on the part of Chavez?
It would be a big mistake for Chavez, but Chavez wants to prove that he's the best fighter in the world, and I want to prove I'm the best fighter in the world. I can see myself knocking Chavez out. I think I would destroy Chavez.
James Toney, there are those who suggest that perhaps he's just too big. I think he's about 9 or 10 pounds heavier, perhaps too strong for Terry Norris. Is it a fight that's high on your list right now to move up?
Moving up to middleweight is my next move. Since Chavez is not there, my next move is to move.
But isn't it true, this new deal that you have with King, that you can name your own opponents? That's unprecedented if that's true. This is what I'd heard.
That's true, but it's good for me to have that on my side. I'm able to move up to middleweight and fight whoever I want to fight in middleweight. But I want to fight somebody for a world title, and we're talking about fighting Reggie Johnson. But with James Toney, he probably has about 20 pounds on me now.
Right.
So I'm like, he's getting fat, fatter by the day, So, but if he comes down to middleweight and wants to fight, I'll fight him too.
You're a late bloomer, Terry. I mean, I think you might even admit that. You were not a thrilling fighter early in your career. You had a couple of defeats. You lost to Julian Jackson. People wrote you off. What was the turning point for you? What, that you sort of came together as a fighter? What do you think it was?
I think the whole turning point was when I lost against, when I got knocked out by Julian Jackson.
Right.
That was the turning point.
You want to avenge that? Because Julian Jackson himself got knocked out in Mexico City. They were talking about a showdown between the two of you. Is that still a stain on your record?
Yeah, it still bothers me, even though he got knocked out. I didn't knock him out. So, you know, I want to fight him, and one day I will.
You think he'll be one of the opponents you'll name over the next four?
Yeah, he will be one of them.
Okay. We're going to talk to Terry Norris in a few moments about turning points in his athletic career. He was a tremendous baseball player back in Texas, and then there was an incident that really changed his life and changed his focus into boxing. We'll also hear from Sugar Ray Leonard. We're talking to terrible Terry Norris, one of the great fighters in the world today. We'll do it after this.
Up Close is brought to you by Blockbuster Video, where you'll find all the hits all the time. Blockbuster Video. Bring the good times home.
You'll see Terry Norris fight from San Diego on Showtime, if you get Showtime Saturday night, against Troy Waters. Also on that card is Maurice Blocker, whom Terry Norris devastated, I have to say, in Mexico City a few months back. I want to talk a little bit about an incident that people don't really know too much about. Back in your high school days, you were a baseball player, a terrific baseball player, standing on second base, and there was a guy playing ball against you who kept trying to push you back. You were trying to take a lead off second base, kept spiking you, and then he kept using defamatory, shall we say, language. It bothered you to a point where you wanted to throw a punch, and you got into a brawl, and you were jailed for that. That was a seminal moment, a key moment in your life, because you realized your fists could speak.
Right.
Tell me about that.
You know, at that point, it was just, you know, I was just pushed to the limit, you know, and the fight broke out where he kept spiking me every time I could take my lead and try to steal third. And, you know, the fight broke out. I hit him.
But you didn't just hit him, you hit some other people.
I hit him and two other guys, yeah.
Did you knock him out?
I put them, well, actually I put all of them, knocked all three of them out, and one had a concussion and all that. Yeah, and it made a real bigger deal out of it than what I think it was supposed to have been.
Well, it was an unfortunate incident, I think you'd agree, but it was a turning point in the sense, I mean, you also had to spend time in prison. I mean, not prison, in jail, local jail.
Yeah.
And you're saying to yourself, what do I have here?
Yeah.
What do I have? Did that turn it around for you? Did you say, I'm not going to be a baseball player any longer, I'm going to make some money with this?
Once I got suspended from baseball and I kind of like lost that drive for baseball, I knew right then that I was, you know, like I could fight better than I can play baseball.
I bet.
And I went right to boxing.
Did you know enough about boxing before you entered into it, or was it just purely? I mean, had you any boxing background at all getting into this?
Yeah, I had been fighting for at least 9 years then, and it was off and on, baseball and boxing.
That made the decision for you.
And my brother, Orlin Norris, was already fighting out here in San Diego.
Yeah, some fine fighter, some people may not know, right?
And yeah, he's a good fighter. And he asked me to come out. And I'm here now, you know.
Here's an interesting parallel to a guy who you idolized. I mean, Sugar Ray Leonard was the guy that you looked to, and of course the guy you eventually beat. Ray Leonard was talking about the moment for him when he realized he no longer just was going to take any guff from anybody. Well, that somebody happened to be his own brother, Roger Leonard. Here's Ray Leonard talking about his turning point as a boxer.
My brother Roger had a lot of talent, but no self-discipline. He would go to parties, hang out late, smoke, drink, everything. He did just the opposite. And I continued to stay in the gym and perfect my craft until one particular time I went into the ring with him, got into the ring with him rather, and I broke his nose. It felt so good. It felt so good.
I like this job, he said.
You know,
at 14, that's when you said it.
That's when I realized that boxing was for me. I felt a sense of control, power, speed, a certain amount of dominance. And it wasn't a matter of age or height or weight. I could dominate.
What do you like about what you do? I mean, some people say this is a primitive sport, it's an ugly sport, a mean sport fought by mean people. What do you like about it in the ring?
You know, first of all, like, I'm not a mean person, so I'm not mean in the ring. I'm mean in the ring, but outside I'm a real calm person, a low-key person. But what I like about it is that one-on-one thrill that you know, I can't get it anywhere else. And able to really just take your opponent, to take him apart, to pick him apart. You know, you're fighting against top opponents, and you can just kind of like, in some ways, dissect him. And it feels good to be able to just, you know, to have somebody right there, you know, and you can just kind of like destroy him anytime you want to. You know, it's a...
Do you notice when you're taking the air out of somebody who's been pumped up, so to speak? Can you tell psychologically when you won the fight?
Yeah, when I fought, I can remember when I fought Carl Daniels. You know, he was winning the early rounds and everything, and he was all keyed up, and he was going, and late in the rounds, I started catching him with some good shots. I was telling my dad in the corner, you know, I'm getting him now. I know I'm getting him. And later on in the 8th round, I caught up with him and took him out.
People had suggested, and this is all part of the rumor and innuendo mill, but I'll still ask about it anyway, that money had gone to Terry Norris's head, that there was discord in the camp or at home. Well, you got your family here, and you got the same people who've been in the corner for years here today. Anything you'd like to say about it, how it was just an isolated incident, perhaps, and that you're still with the same people who got you here?
I'm still with everybody that's got me here. With my wife, you know, we're happy. With my manager, we're happy. Everybody's behind me, 100%. There's nothing that's pulling me apart. Money hasn't gone to my head. You know, it's a lot of money. I mean, I'm able to take care of my family where I want to. So, you know, I feel good about that. And it hasn't gone to my head, though.
This guy is a great fighter to watch, and if you saw the Maurice Blocker fight in Mexico City, you know how devastating a puncher he is. Troy Waters is his opponent. Next up, it's at the Sports Arena. You'll see it at Showtime, and that is Saturday night, June 19th. Terrible. Terry Norris, thank you for joining us. Good to see you again. Larry Merchant joins us. We'll get some other insights and other visions in boxing. Larry from HBO Sports. We'll talk to him after this.
Music Express, voted #1 by the National Limousine Association, has offices in Los Angeles and the East Coast. Music Express can handle your corporate needs anywhere in the U.S. and worldwide.
15 years now at HBO, one of the voices of HBO boxing over the years, and of course you'll see him with Wimbledon coverage beginning next Monday. He is Larry Merchant, the veteran scribe and broadcast analyst, now joining us up close. He goes from the ring right into our studio, magically, right here. Good to see you, Larry. Thank you for joining us.
Good to be back.
Let's, first of all, this past Monday, we saw the replay of the Foreman-Morrison fight. First question, what does Tommy Morrison have that the public wants at this point?
Well, Tommy Morrison probably has as much natural ability as anyone in the heavyweight division.
Really?
He can punch.
He didn't do a lot of punching against George,
He has
though.
quickness. He punched him. He fought a very good, disciplined fight. Now, I said natural ability. That doesn't mean he is as good a fighter as Riddick Bowe or Lennox Lewis.
Right.
But he does bring a lot of ability to the party. He seems a little bit more dedicated than he had in the past in terms of training. The big question about him going into this fight was, could he take a punch? He had been knocked down by a jab by Carl the Truth Williams.
Right.
And he was keyed up. He fought well. Give him all the credit in the world. I don't think that in the big picture, ultimate scheme of things, that beating George Foreman proves that he is an outstanding fighter.
Right.
But he was the guy who was in front of him, and he beat him.
Pointedly, we're not going to see Tommy Morrison as the heavyweight champion of the world, really, will we?
I would not rule out any possibility of that.
But
if I were managing Tommy Morrison, I would look him in the eye and say, Tommy, you can get a big money fight to fight either Lennox Lewis or Riddick Bowe. That could be your next fight. I don't think you're ready to beat either of those guys unless you fight 3 or 4 more fights and condition yourself for another year.
Okay, save that thought, because Rock Newman wanted to broach that very issue. Rock Newman talking about a projected Bowe fight versus Tommy Morrison. This is his comments to the press as recently as, I guess, a night or two after the fight Tommy Morrison had.
Well, I think that it's a very promotable fight, and it's a fight that I like because it is a big money fight. And for Riddick Bowe, and I should be saying something else here. I should be saying it would be really a tough fight. Riddick would annihilate Tommy Morrison.
That's putting it right there. Let's point the facts right now. Tommy Morrison would be a priority because it's a big money fight, as he mentioned before. Lennox Lewis isn't in Riddick Bowe's plans, not anytime anywhere near soon, right?
Well, there's an interesting scenario has developed here. It could be, even though I think all fight fans want to see Bowe fight Lewis. Two undefeated, big, attractive heavyweights who have fought in the Olympics. I don't think until Bowe beats Lewis will the general public actually say, wow, we have a terrific champion here.
Right.
But some things have happened recently that could put that off. Lewis could actually be fourth on the list.
Fourth?
Fourth. He has there's a contract with Evander Holyfield for a rematch with Bowe.
Right.
We could have a big legal hassle about that. They would love to fight Tommy Morrison. And then there's Michael Moorer, who's a #1 rated fighter and whose turn will be up soon. Now, all of those things, the mix can always change, but what precipitated this scenario was the Lewis-Tucker fight.
Right.
Because in that fight, the promoters had what I have understand to be the biggest loss in the history of boxing.
Financial loss?
Financial loss.
What kind of money?
$6 million.
They lost $6 million on that fight?
That's my understanding, that they Don King bid over $12 million for the fight, had to pay Lewis $9 million, and
couldn't recoup it.
And wound up losing 6. Now,
right.
So that was a good fight for Lewis, but in fact, he made more money than Bowe has made in either of his defenses. But now, people feel, in boxing feel, he's not an attraction, Lennox Lewis, so that even though he's offered a 50-50 split to fight Tommy Morrison, the Morrison people feel they can make as much or more with less of a split to fight Bowe.
Why do you think it's not been saleable? There was not enough interest in Lewis going in, or B, once the fight established, he didn't have a good showing. That also hurt him in that particular fight. But going in, people weren't buying tickets to see Lennox Lewis. Why? They didn't believe him?
Well, he was fighting a guy, Tony Tucker, that everybody had forgotten about. He had given Mike Tyson his most difficult fight until Tyson lost the title to Buster Douglas. And 2, he didn't win his title in the ring. Right. Riddick Bowe is an American who beat the man, who beat the man, who beat the man Tyson, who unified the title.
How good is Riddick Bowe at this point, in your mind? Are you convinced that he's in the high echelon of the greats?
No, I don't think he's proven that yet. I think he may very well be. He is the best schooled big man I have ever seen. 6'4" or 5", 230, 235 pounds, with the kind of skills that you find in the smaller divisions. That's very, very unusual.
Holyfield, let's listen to his comments talking about the possibility of fighting Bowe, and apparently, reportedly, that's who Bowe is about to fight again. This is Evander Holyfield talking about that.
My skills were better in a lot of my fight, more so than that. That fight there, it was just a gutsy fight. And it's plenty of fights before then I showed guts.
All right, he's saying that he's got as much left then that he ever had, and he'd probably fight a better fight against Bowe.
Well, he might fight a better tactical fight, just the way Morrison did against Foreman. He went into that fight, and after a round or 2, they decided that what they were going to do was put tremendous pressure on Bowe because he had never been through a long, tough, grueling fight. It backfired.
Right.
Bowe was ready for it, dealt with it. I think he would go in the next time trying to fight a more tactical fight, staying away, jumping in, punching, not just standing there and trading.
Money notwithstanding, if you're in Holyfield's corner, do you say stay retired? Or he hasn't officially been retired. He said he retired the first night and then he came back. Or would you take the money fight? I mean, it's hard to, you're talking about money and no money, but I mean, what do you think?
Well, he's only 30 years old. That's not old for a prize fighter, certainly not for a heavyweight. He feels he needs another whack at it. Go for it.
This guy takes whacks at every time he does a boxing show for HBO. You'll also see him on the tennis courts at Wimbledon starting Monday. Larry Merchant, more after this.
Travel arranged through Continental. One airline can make a difference. A first-class seat for the price of full coach. That's the difference on Continental.
Larry Merchant was just telling me this is the best time he can remember in a long time. TV, cable, boxing, the whole picture. There's a lot of fights, a lot of fighters, and there's a lot of interesting packages they could put together. Let's start with individual fighters. Chavez, first of all, Does he have to fight Norris for it to be the biggest payday of his career? Do you think Chavez has got enough left to fight or beat Terry Norris?
Well, he's going to make an awful lot of money for fighting Pernell Whitaker, and he would have to win that fight to ever be able to even want to fight Norris.
Will he beat Whitaker?
I wouldn't be. Would he beat Whitaker? My feeling is that it's going to be a very close fight, and that if it is a close fight, then he would win it on aggression. But it's conceivable to me that Whitaker would win the fight. Something about this talk of a Chavez-Norris fight, two best fighters pound for pound. I love Chavez. There's nothing not to love about him as a fighter. One guy is going to be 31 years old, and he's a 140-pounder. The other guy is 26 years old. He's a 152 or 53-pounder.
That's Norris. For those.
So that's pound for pound. That's nothing. But people would be curious, and they could make a lot of money.
De La Hoya couldn't make weight the other day, which was curious. Actually cost him $5 grand. Says he wants to win 6 titles. How good right now? How far away from a major title?
Well, he's obviously a terrific young prospect. You have to love everything about him. And sometimes when an athlete is as precocious as he is, you can't stop the momentum of where he's going. Even though he's only had a handful of professional fights, he had 250 amateur fights, many of them in international competition that are the equivalent of 10 or 20 4- or 6-round fights.
So you're saying it's not premature that they're going to go for the title this season?
My own feeling is it's still premature, because even though he may be ready physically, once you become a champion, things happen to you, and I don't know that you can cope with them emotionally, Mike Tyson. But here's the other point. He had difficulty making 133 pounds against Troy Dorsey on the undercard of Foreman Morrison. To make a 5'11" kid go back to 130, which is what they're talking about, in the fall, when he still may be bigger, I think that might be pushing it a little bit.
You think Terry Norris right now, we talked about this in the green room before the show, you believe he's the best pound for pound in the sport?
He really has the whole package together. He's a terrific, terrific young fighter. He has to decide when he's going to move up to the middleweight division, and if he's going to make a mark like Marvin Hagler, it'll come later in his career, and it will be as a middleweight, because he's just too good for people his own weight and underneath him.
Mike Tyson, is he coming out soon? Is he going to get a retrial, in your opinion?
One of the few things I'm not expert in this world is Indiana jurisprudence.
Right.
And since he has a high-priced ambulance chaser in Alan Dershowitz, I'll let him handle that part of it.
Just take an opinion on somebody, Larry, that's all. Thanks, good to see you. Best of luck in Wimbledon. Have a good time up there.
Sure.
Thanks, Larry. We'll come back, wrap things up close right after this.
Guests of Up Close stay at the JW Marriott at Century City. The JW Marriott adjoining Beverly Hills offers distinctive elegance and charm in Century City.
We thank the champion Terry Norris for joining us up close. Also, Larry Merchant from HBO Sports tomorrow from New Mexico State. A superstar perhaps in waiting. His name is Sam Crawford. He'll be joined with Norm Nixon, formerly of the Lakers. We'll see you then.